What is the meaning of life? What is our purpose in this world? Why are we all here? Perhaps phrased slightly differently, these are all well-known common questions that we've all heard and probably thought about at least once. These wonders all share similarity in that we desperately seek the answer to them, an answer to justify the experience of human suffering or salvation to keep our sanity. It becomes increasingly difficult to answer any of these as we live on. Even more questions arise along the way, spurring a copious amount of doubts. Doubts that we may never find an explanation to that is satisfactory or at all. In another case, the longer we live, the more prone we are to making mistakes. Mistakes that upon reflection can cause months to years of internal turmoil with oneself. Lethargically dwelling on situations we handled poorly, events that went sour, or people that we might have wronged, wishing things went drastically differently to how they actually turned out. Reality settles in and emotions of regret, remorse, guilt, or shame overwhelm us to a point of insanity or suicide. Who would really care if we disappeared one day? Our lives are of benefit to no one. We do not deserve the right to live when all we do is harm. Right?
Every day feels like a waste of time. I'm fucking sick of it, I hate this life.
12-year-old boy Shoya Ishida is not exactly the kindest person in the world. His twisted idea of a solution to his everyday boredom was bullying his new classmate Shoko Nishimiya because of her disability, as Shoko is a deaf girl. A remarkably good first impression for sure. Only after he sees some actual repercussions does Shoya finally call it quits on the mental torment he causes her and the physical abuse he takes delight in doing. Countless times he stole her hearing aids and threw them away. He at long last halts doing so at the sight of this time, causing Shoko's ears to bleed. An ever so tiny start to his internal and mental downfall. The class gets called out for the disappearance of multiple of Shoko's hearing aids, that are spinny by the way, and the bullying that might be occurring. Cut the shit, the teacher calls out Shoya. Even though most of his friends passively or actively participated in the bullying, it was not to the same extent as Shoya did. Therefore, the blame gets pinned on him as he is the main culprit. Being thrown under the bus triggered the foreseeable events and suffering he faces further growing up. He gets bullied and tormented in the exact same ways he did to Shoko, and by his so-called friends of all people. So, on top of getting a taste of his own medicine, he gets betrayed by his peers that he called his friends. Only after this could he finally comprehend and grasp how dastardly his actions to Shoko were. He gained a sense of empathy, hooray! But at the cost of hurting another human being and his own being in the process. It's probably too late to ever come back from this. He can never be redeemed. Maybe. Who knows? Years later, Shoya is in high school. His shameful past haunts him as he has no friends, deeply ingrained trust issues, severe crippling anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts that led him to a suicide attempt. Shoya's situation and mental state could not be any more dire. Lethargic to the core, he finds it impossibly difficult to open up to anyone, shutting himself away from the world. This is beautifully exemplified by the hallway scene where everyone's faces are covered by X's, symbolizing his inability to look people in the eyes due to his crippling anxiety and immense trust issues. His incapacity to make eye contact means he cannot see people for who they truly are, and they cannot see him either. Therefore, his reluctance to give anyone a chance or let them in results in him having no connections or bonds. This is further emphasized by him also blocking out the noise of their voices, shutting himself away from the world by covering his ears. That's how fearful he is of other individuals around him, stemming from the scars that feel self-imposed. He deserves this, right? The suffering he experiences is a well-deserved consequence of the pain he inflicted upon another human being. A suffering so immense it gave him straight depression that made way for him to attempt taking his own life. If this was where his story ended, then maybe it was only right how it ended. Maybe. Shoya does not off himself. He lives on, trying his best to make amends with Shoko, giving his absolute all to repent, to alleviate her life even if ever so slightly. He does. He truly does. Is it enough though? Not quite. He feels vastly beyond any sort of redemption or making it up to her, but he perseveres, continuing to try his best regardless of if he can or not. Building bridges once again, he questions if he's remotely allowed to feel joy, feel happiness. Is it okay for a piece of shit like him to be happy? happy. He's done nothing in his life that caused anguish. Shoko could likely have borderline trauma from that time period. What's he doing here, alive with her and smiling? Someone like him is not permitted to be happy. He should be dead instead. Everyone would be better off without him. His life is worthless. Well, Shoya's worthless existence, instead of driving Shoko to a point of suicide and self-hatred, saves her life, disregarding his own. He ends up falling off the balcony and ends up in the hospital, saving the life of the girl he once caused so much despair. He survives and they bond even closer, as he wants Shoko to like herself and that he wants her to help teach him how to live. Do it together, form a deep bond, like how she wanted to from all those years ago. Maybe it is okay for him to live. In my books, Shoya saving Shoko's life is fucking redemption. Life is precious and exceedingly fragile. We are frail creatures, so protecting life is of course a challenge, especially when there are so many mental hurdles to overcome. We're only given one shot at it, so make it count and don't throw it away, even when it fucking sucks. Shoya saved a whole other autonomous human being. I think he's done right to some extent, regardless of the blunders of his past. He probably still doesn't feel like he's done enough. However, my thoughts are that he's done plenty, and Shoko probably agrees with me. Besides, the point was never about some act of kindness or penance that would magically solve all his internal struggles, solve his problems, and totally redeem him for previous atrocities committed with a bow wrapped around it. It was the fact that despite the epiphany about how cruel his behavior may have been, he had the capacity for self-reflection to realize he was wrong for those immoral actions and undeniably changed into a better person who grew, not staying stagnant in one place or ignorant, believing what he did wasn't that detrimental. He was only a young, naive boy who couldn't have known any better at his prepubescent age, not having the life experience to be any bit cautious of the choices he made. Can we blame him? Yes, we still can. He still does, but there has to be some room for leeway and understanding towards him. Moving forward, he chose to try and do better by him and the girl he gave distress to. His inexperienced and undeveloped mind didn't comprehend what's right from wrong, and that's okay when eventually he learns a good fucking sense of it. So is the value of his life really zero? No, and this is where I'm trying to get at. Our past errors do not dictate the entirety of our beings, especially who we are now. Can't imagine that you and I are the exact same people from 5 years ago or longer. People that if we do some self-reflection upon, perhaps now are not the happiest with, thinking back to how we once were. However, emphasis on the were. That is not us now. So why is it that we can get so caught up believing we're worthless beings who provide no value to this world from failures that might have likely been unavoidable? In no era was there a perfect individual. Human beings are prone to slipping up eventually. That's how we're designed. If the heinous decisions we've once made were because we were young and naive, ignorant with imperfect information, or simply in the heat of the moment, that's perfectly okay. Those things do not define us forever. Further into the future, we use the ability to reflect heavily upon it, realizing we chose the wrong course of action. Though it is essential we're aware we only spotted this in hindsight, so it's much easier to say now, but back in the moment of these things happening would have been impossibly difficult to see. What I believe is way more valuable and of significance is that we learned from the mistakes we're unhappy with, and moving forward we try our goddamn best to make better choices in the now. Things that have already happened cannot be changed or fixed, so focus on the present moment and how we can consciously attempt to make better decisions we are happy with. That's what matters the absolute fucking most, is that you are genuinely trying to be better. There is an honest to god real effort being made to strive towards being a better individual who heals and gives, instead of hurt and harm. Your human life is not worth zero because of what you did back then, as you now are more knowledgeable, wiser, and doing your best to improve from that state many years ago. We're not worthless, we were just stupid, but human. Some diamonds in the rough finding their place in the world, trying to discern right from wrong. Trust me, compared to the person I was, I could finally start believing that my life was not as worthless as I had once thought it to be. That I have the capacity to be better, and of fucking course you do too, because we are no different to one another. It's a bit tiresome to say we deserve something like eternal suffering or to be dead when us now are not the ones who made those silly slip-ups. It was us then.
I'm still searching for my purpose. I don't know what I'ma get.
Portgas D. Ace, aka Firefist Ace, is an infamous pirate representing the Whitebeard Pirates as the 2nd Division commander. So he's a bit of a big shot in the One Piece world, even bigger than you had initially thought when you find out he's Gold Roger's son. Shit had me shook for real. Now imagine this, you are the secret child of the most notorious era-defining criminal in the world. What would life be like for you? Perhaps a bit miserable when you have to hide your true identity to merely avoid even more scrutiny and hostility thrown your way than you unintentionally already do. To bear the sins of your felonious father's name and actions as collateral damage for unfortunately having been born his child. On top of the fact his mother passed away, therefore leaving him parentless in this world with no one, Ace was not given the best of circumstances. Though he had Garp as a substitute for one of his father figures who gave him opportune to meet our beloved glorious Rubber King Luffy, who he would deem his brother after sharing a cup of sake with one another in addition to Sabo as well. These people matter a metric fuck ton to Ace, because without them he would not have a will to live. Growing up, Ace heard a lot of heinous things from countless random people about what they would do to Roger's child if he existed, not knowing it was Ace obviously. The comments and remarks were very similar, all being about making Roger pay for his actions by inflicting the worst types of torment and pain onto his child. Naturally, he is unhappy with such malice towards him, so he gets into a lot of trouble to covertly defend his existence. He's resentful of his shitty biological father when that man is compared to Whitebeard, who was actually in his life, positively affected his life significantly, and calls him his own son. Whitebeard was the father he needed and deserved. He don't give a fuck that Ace is his biggest rival's son. None of that shit matters to him. Only thing that matters to him is if Ace is happy to have him as a father. My go Whitebeard, man, I'm crying. Ace's character and life trajectory without Whitebeard and his brothers would be drastically different, since from birth his life, his existence was unwanted. Having to develop and navigate through the world with something as detrimental as being denied a right to feel like it was okay for you to be born sounds so painful beyond imagination. Doing the day-to-day with those thoughts permeating throughout his mind made him question if his life was even worth living. No one wanted him to be born, but he didn't get a choice in whether he was born or not and who his parents were. So all that animosity that unintentionally gets thrown towards him is so BS, unfair, and unjustified. Being basically forced into a position of always putting his existence into question and having to wonder if he is really like what people say of him. That his life is of sin. It is of zero value. He legitimately has such appalling self-doubt about whether he deserved to be born or not, which is extremely disheartening. So unsurprisingly, he fucking struggles with problems around his self-worth. It drives him so hard to find meaning and purpose with his life, striving to carve something into the world for himself to prove he was worth being born. That is what his heart sought out. Do I believe Ace deserved to be born? Of fucking course I do. Ace's life was not one deserving of atonement for the sins of his father that he had no control or say over. Roger's life that he lived out is separate to Ace's, being its own entity. His flesh and blood that lives on is not responsible for handling any resentment, backlash, or ill will that is meant for him. Ace is not Roger. Hence, he should be given a fair chance at life, not having to have this burden of a generational criminal haunting his existence. No one should have to live fearing what people would do to them if they found out whose blood they may harbor. They should not have to contemplate whether them being born was good or not. Existing is not a crime. You are your own person, detached from your parents' actions and choices. To say you are accountable for their conscious misdeeds and wrongdoings is a bit preposterous. It isn't justifiable to have you face the consequences for vices that are not yours, regardless of of your background or who you come from, you are allowed to live out this life that is yours and yours only. The value of your life is not tied to the blood inside your veins. For that reason, the blood inside does not equal you being worth any bit less than you might think you are. You weren't born zero or worthless. No one can tell you otherwise. You are entitled to create your own path, giving meaning and value that is not derived from your predecessors. Meaning and value that doesn't have to be inherently shitty and worthless because you came from somewhere undesirable. Akin to Ace, there will be someone out there who knows what you're worth. No one was born into this world to be alone. Such as his case, he found salvation for his search in sharing a bond that runs deeper than blood with Luffy, and there is a remarkable amount of significance in that. Shit that you just can't describe with words, or something that could be valued with a mere fucking price tag. A joy so rich and full of bliss that can't be found anywhere else. I am certain we are not as undesired as we might believe ourselves to be. That if not now, eventually someone out there will want us in their lives more than we could ever come to understand why. To that someone, we are worth it no matter what our minds want to tell us or our doubts have to say about it. In the face of that figure, that is our answer. The answer of whether we should be alive or not. Any uncertainty diminishes and fades to the light they shine onto our beings. To us, we might be just some worthless good-for-nothing that produces zero benefit to their lives. But we don't share their eyes, so they don't see us that way. You are not your thoughts, and those special people in your life know that better than you do. If you and I alike mean something to someone, and if that is the case, we can say we deserve to have been born, right? Yeah, I think so. Because there is someone else's life out there that wants you in it, or is simply just waiting for you to arrive. I hope for all of us one day, then, now, or soon, that our question is answered. That we feel okay to say we're allowed to live, and it isn't wrong for us to do so. The last person I want to talk about is Mr. I Have No Enemies himself. However, if you've seen the series, you know Thorfinn was definitely not always this way. He started out vastly different when you contrast Season 1 Thorfinn to Season 2 Thorfinn. Oh yeah, this will be mostly talking around the anime. I'm yet to read the manga after its recent conclusion. Thorfinn, son of Thor's, born into the Viking era, glorifies battles, war, killing the enemies and shit like that, often associating victory over an opposition of some sorts as a true test of one's strength and value he has as a warrior. However, his father Thor's begs to differ. Truly a surprise when you hear how his name is spoken about by others, including the infamous Jomsvikings, who are exceedingly feared. A one-man army who could solo masses like he's fucking Sung Jin-woo out here. Even at the top of what his era merits the most, with outstanding combat ability that's unrivaled. Thor's was sick of the fighting and fled the battlefield, leaving the life of killing behind. Though Thorfinn is too young to understand now, Thor's hopes one day he will. That at the chance of conflict nearing is not a good thing, and that he shouldn't be giddy and zealous to hold a blade. He's unable to comprehend what his father is saying. He needs to go kill the enemies is why he's so eager. But Thor's tells Thorfinn the most essential message of the story. You have no enemies. No one has any enemies. There is no one you need to hurt. A message that in the first season goes dormant within Thorfinn's psyche as he seeks revenge on the man who ends up killing Thor's. In return, Thorfinn's life and the rest of the boys from Iceland were spared. Instead of cherishing his father's wishes and words he left him with, he becomes enraged and blinded by revenge to get back for his pops. Except, unlike how Askeladd, the guy who killed Thor's, used his cunningness, dishonor, and cheap tactics to get Thor's wiped, Thorfinn wants to run a fair 1v1. Otherwise, to him, it's a disservice to his father who won his duel with Askeladd honorably. He follows Askeladd and his crew from 6 to 16 years old, fueled by his undying desire to spin back at him. Thorfinn's wish for revenge is only natural. He was a naive 6-year-old child, so seeing this unfathomable atrocity atrocity happened right before his very eyes, his course of action was very natural and understandable. Even if Thors wouldn't wish for this to be the path he chooses to walk, it would be excruciatingly difficult for anyone in Thorfinn's position at his age to take any other route. We'd be just as susceptible to experience the same sorrow and rage because we're just as human as he is. A tragedy like this would be arduous to just let slide. Besides, we're shown this to learn from the outside perspective looking in, to take away lessons this series will later on teach us. Fast forward, Thorfinn disdains Askeladd, which he does, but simultaneously needs him, working under his father's killer for 10 years just to rejoice on the day he finally succeeds in his quest for revenge. His anger and contempt is enough for him to keep pushing until that day, and it's quite ironic this guy he despises so much also gives him his sole and only reason for living. It's pretty fun watching them interact as well. Askeladd treating Thorfinn like his son and shit, low-key mentoring him. His real father's killer becomes his substitute father figure, and it's high-key goated. Askeladd never loses to Thorfinn, because Thorfinn is still the exact same rage baby from a decade ago. Askeladd's trolling ass always rage baits Thorfinn in the duels, which Thorfinn falls for every goddamn time, resulting in him always losing. But he'll get him back one day, right? Askeladd dies to Canute. Thorfinn is left in shambles. Look at this man! In mere seconds, Askeladd lost his life and Thorfinn lost everything. Eyes fading, laid out, bleeding out. Askeladd left Thorfinn with one question. What will he do after he's gone? Has bro put in any thought to what he would do with his life afterwards when Askeladd is dead? Nah, he thought so too. And he was so fucking right. We move to season 2. Thorfinn is a purposeless bum with no will to live and lethargically slaving away. In a literal sense, he is an actual slave. Replacing his raging fixation on vengeance was a hollow emptiness that drowns his being in apathy. He has nothing. He is nothing. He is no one. A wandering vessel that could care less whether he died or not. Having torture inflicted on him to attempt instilling fear does a buttload of nothing. What would it matter if he died right here, right now? Nothing good has ever happened to him in his life. Wow, bro is fucking cooked. A slave with no free will, a defeated soul that has no angst about dying, a worthless human being that severely lacks purpose. On top of all that, he suffers from night terrors of his past sins of murders that haunt his every sleeping moment. Only now is he facing distress from the realization of his mistakes. What would Thors think of this life he's lived full of bloodshed and tyranny? Did it have to take all these lives lost for Thorfinn to do some reflection inside? To become aware of the type of person he was? No, it didn't, but that is his reality he has to confront. It's not the end for our young MC. Snake finds it within Thorfinn by forcing his body to act, telling him in us, from his body's instinct to defend itself from a life-threatening strike. He still wants to live. He just does not know for what reason he should be is all, which is perfectly acceptable. Now is the time for Thorfinn to overcome his inner demons and lead a new life without having to hurt anyone anymore. He found his way, and when forced with a dire situation, he chooses to take 100 punches, overthrowing a single fist. Why does he not retaliate against his enemy? Wrong. What would come out of fighting back with someone he does not even know or hasn't even truly spoken to? This guy is not his enemy. He has no enemies. Oh my god! That's why he's the guy! Thorfinn is a dangerous case of what happens when you tie your entire self-worth solely on one thing. A thing or ambition that is, with retrospect, exceptionally more shallow and lackluster than we could have imagined. Hence why Askeladd was right. What is left for Thorfinn if he were to finally attain his objective? Where does he go from there? I don't know, and Thorfinn doesn't know. Not only did he not get to fulfill his deepest wish, we saw the dreadful consequences afterwards. Upon recalling memories and choices of his past, all he can do is scream in regret whilst the dead bodies terrorize his dreams. He's utterly drained of anything that can resemble a true dream, desire, or ambition. Completely lifeless in his eyes, you can visibly see his lack of wanting to continue on with his shitty existence. A being that lacks any bit of motive or purpose in life, desolate of a true destination. There is no path for him to walk, because where does it even lead to if there's nothing behind it to make him strive walking it? Just a vast, never-ending route that leads him nowhere. His free will being relinquished doesn't bother or concern him the slightest. Slave or not, it's all the same to him. He's basically immune to any physical damage inflicted onto him from how little he cares about living. Pessimism wrapping around every inch of his being. It's devastating, the state he's in, especially when it seems like he's beyond saving. Zero. His life is worth absolutely zero. He is of no use to anyone. His existence is completely, utterly worthless. He's better off dead anyway. No. By the end of Season 2, we see Thorfinn become the total antithesis to his character in Season 1, resembling and astounding nothing like his previous self. He found the path of a true warrior, one who does not seek external validation from the taking of life and meaningless violence, but one whose internal life force is rich with meaning and purpose that would rather resort to absolutely everything else before an exchanging of fists or clashing of swords. No longer consumed by hatred and revenge, he could finally understand what his father meant. He has no enemies, and there is no one he should hurt. The strength of a true warrior, the kindness within not to harm. To aspire to be a man that Thors would be proud of, and to find that warm and fertile land far beyond the reach of any war, and that is free of slaves as well. Finding Vinland is Thorfinn's calling, and the path he shall now walk towards. Lost in the world, directionless with a defeated will, Thorfinn still managed to discover a new meaningful purpose with his life. A reason to live that goes further into building a worthwhile future, gaining a real sense of value to living. A life that is worth it, a soul that shares its kindness. The only thing it took was time, and that is A-O-fucking-K. His route was arduous, tormenting, full of guilt and remorse, though whose isn't? To walk a road that's flawlessly virtuous, always knowing what way to go, is immensely difficult. A road with true meaning behind one's desire is hard to find in all honesty. Arduous it may be, however, not impossible. Thorfinn did it, so why can't we? Even if it takes us what feels like a lifetime, as long as we're trying our damned hardest, striving to find our purpose, our worthwhile that isn't super shallow, superficial, or lackluster, that's all that really fucking matters. If there's something you once thought to be the be-all and end-all to why your life matters, know that there is likely something else out there meant for you. Maybe this one wasn't as gratifying as you initially thought it'd be. Maybe you feel like your existence is worthless having lost it. But really, it's okay that you thought it'd be greater than it was, and your life doesn't lose its value because of a lost desire. You are more than what your mind tells you. You're more than a lost ambition. You are not worthless just because you lost something you thought to be important. Your worth is more than being tied down to one mere thing. You're someone that can change, grow, and discover anew. What's lost now is not forever. Something new, something different is waiting for you. You're just yet to stumble across it. Your previous pursuit is not a reason to give up. It was just the first mountain you climbed that had covered the even bigger mountain. But only once you reached the horizon did you realize this was not the end. Just a desire you attained that masked what was truly beyond.
You're just you, and I'm just me.
I have some closing thoughts I'll try to be brief about before this video ends. The reason why I'm making this video is because of what I can only describe as an allergic reaction to a comment about myself a friend made during our conversation. She said I have high self-worth, and it struck my entire being, as if my soul repulsed from what my ears just heard, because I felt like she couldn't be any further from the truth. Don't worry, she didn't get me mad or no way. It was of no offense, and she couldn't have known any better. Though that's why I'm here yapping about it today. During my 2 decades on Earth living as a human being who resonated with the characters talked about, related deeply to their struggles, I wholeheartedly believe that issues of low self-worth have plagued my existence the most of any. I'm guilty of lamenting past sins like Shoya, questioning if I deserve to be born like Ace, and have depended on one thing to dictate how much value my life holds like Thorfinn. The wrongdoings of my previous self have tormented sleepless nights where I break down, wanting to do nothing but die for the pain I caused. I deserve nothing else but to be buried 6 feet under as a rotten corpse that was good for nothing in this world. My birth was God's carelessness not foreseeing the harm I would inflict. So please, strike me down, for I did not deserve to be born. If all I do is hurt, then it is better that I'm disposed of sooner than later. I am unable to understand what my purpose in this world is when all I do is sin. Will there ever be any good coming out of me breathing this air? Maybe. I don't know yet. All I know to do is try my best under all circumstances, because there's nothing about the past that I can change now. Forward is the only way we can move, since time won't slow down and wait for us, nor can it undo what's already done. Even now, I can't say for certain whether how I view myself contains that same disdain for myself I once harbored. However, I've accepted the fact that fate doesn't allow me to go back in time to fix things. Those thoughts of shoulda, coulda, woulda is fruitless and gets me nowhere. They go to the wayside when I forever dwell on them. Therefore, I choose to confront reality instead of running away from it. I was a worthless good for nothing. Even so, what matters is that I try to not be that way as I continue to live on. That I make a real genuine effort to change and grow furthermore, becoming a better, stronger, kinder person. Someone that I myself can say deserves to live. Faltering along the way was and is a given really, though it is not a sufficient reason to give up. It just means to look back, take away valuable lessons, and move on to improve ourselves with what we've experienced and learned. In the end, all we can do is try our best, so that is what I will choose to do, even if I'm bound to slip up along the way. It's only human. Please do not fall for the trap of believing your worth is tied to one singular thing, because if it leaves you, betrays you, or isn't as fulfilling as you thought it would be, it can be rather mentally shattering. It's all you have, so without it, or because you're not going anywhere with it, you crumble. The gym used to be that for me, dedicating this vessel and entire being into the gym, solely basing what use or worth I could provide because of how much I went, how big the weights I could lift were, how big I was, or how hard I went at the gym. For example, I could fail to hit my normal rep range or fail a PR, not look as big as the guys I see online, and I'd just feel like shit after the session, wanting to off myself. But I now know that isn't enough to keep pushing in life, and that it shouldn't control my value as an autonomous human being. How I am outside of the facility I go to for an hour or two matters as well. Applying the same mindset and discipline I can have in the gym to my work, my craft, my passion is of importance too. Lifting heavy objects isn't my life or death, and it doesn't determine if I'm worthless or not. On top of social media also amplifying how shitty I feel about myself. Being aware that the guys I see online could be on PEDs, or the more glaring problem, constantly being shown the top 0.1% of bodybuilders or powerlifters with peak genetics. Comparing myself just made me feel worse, so now I'm avoidant of shit like that because I know I'm not them and they're not me, you feel me? I still really do fuck with the gym, don't worry. And I still encourage people to go 100%. I'm just not for basing your entire existence's worth off the gym, or in other cases just one thing. That one thing just happened to be the gym for me. Don't get it twisted please. I ain't hating on the gym, because why else would I still go 5 to 6 days a week? I'm saying just to be wary to not get fixated on one thing to decide whether your life is worth or not. We are so much more than just that one thing. I mean, do you see how infinite you are? Why would I just want to have my identity binded to one thing out of many that I possess within me as well, you feel me? Let alone me though. You watching or anyone else out there have probably at least once sounded like you've been through these hurdles as well, no doubt. Social media floods your eyes with only the utmost unrealistic top 0.1% of people that you unconsciously or consciously compare yourself to, making you feel like total dog shit. Whether that be celebrities or influencers, the overload of seeing all these people with things you want, desires you have, living your dream out, it sends your mind into a state of inadequacy, believing you aren't enough, or compared to them you have no value. Which, spoiler alert, isn't true, as their lives aren't as perfect as they paint it out to be. They're just showing the absolute highlights only, so your brain buys into the illusion. Therefore, comparing yourself to what you see online is kind of a silly thing to do. It's not something that you should let get to you, or make you doubt what value you have as a human being. Being human yourself, you've probably made choices that you aren't the most proud of. I dare say you regret or feel remorseful about these decisions in the past, eating you up inside, taking control of your day-to-day mood, and internal feelings about your work worth as a person. But I want you to know it's okay that you made mistakes. It's only natural to fumble and fall along your journey of life, though don't let it consume you to a point of questioning your whole self-worth. Your previous muck-ups make you who you are today, and I can only assume who you are today is someone who's changed. Someone who reflected and learned lessons to carry along as you move further into the future. Someone who didn't know any better back then but now has grown into an individual who seeks to try their best and be better. Whether the blunders are recent or long ago, they do not define you as a person for the rest of your life when you can acknowledge that they were wrong. You are not a failure because you are flawed. Being flawed is part of you, and all it means is that you have room for growth. Then or now, if you're struggling with feeling worthless, from me to you, you are worth more than you could ever know. Our mind loves to play tricks on us, but don't fall for the illusion or thoughts it feeds you. You are not your thoughts. You're someone who's still blossoming into their own. You are human, not worthless. That's me. This yap has been yapping for a minute now. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed and stayed for more. I'm trying to hit 1K before the end of the year, so I'd truly be grateful to have you here. Like the video, comment down below your thoughts about the characters, series, video, anything you have to say. I want to hear it all. Thank you so much for watching, and have a blessed rest of your day.